Welcome back to Walking into Retirement. This is my second video, or basically 5 days after retirement day. All right, so a couple of observations just in a short period of time, that I've been retired. All right, so things that surprised me, I guess. I actually enjoy not having to get up at 4:30 in the morning to an alarm. I don't know why, but it's not like I can sleep in late or anything, but for me, sleeping in is, if I sleep into 8 a.m., but it's nice not to have to get up and answer to an alarm. I'm not going to kid you. Always thought it was funny when people said that, but 5 days in, I can already tell you, it's nice not to have to set an alarm, and it's nice not to have to get up at 4:30 because the damn alarm's going off. So that's pretty good. All right. I'm also surprised that, after 5 days, I really don't feel any different. I thought for sure I would, but I'm not going to say I like or I dislike, but it's just I can't say that I feel like I'm really any different than I did a week ago. Now that may change as we move forward, and a lot of people have said that, it takes a few weeks for things to, kind of get out of your system and change the way you view the world. So, I may, find that different down the road, but right now, I don't feel any different than I did a week ago. All right. So now, another observation, like, dislike, whatever. I'm used to having a schedule, and it's kind of strange not having one. All right, and I've read where people found that to be, difficult or different, and it is for me. Now, granted, it's only 5 days in, so it's not like I have a big sample to draw from, but it's weird not having a schedule, or for lack of a better term, things to go do. So we'll continue to watch that, and see how that goes. All right, so now what else? I don't like the fact that I'm home and my wife gets up and goes to work. I didn't even give that a moment's thought as I worked into this, and it surprises me how I feel every morning when she gets up and leaves and goes to work, and I'm still laying in bed. That's just odd. I mean, it's not. We've always done the reverse. All right, for years it's always been the reverse, and it's something I'm going to have to find a way to get used to. But right now, I'm not. But it'll get better. So now what else to talk about in this particular video? I thought, we talked about in the last video, how I got burned out and it was just time to move on. So I thought here, talk a little bit about, planning, all right, and getting ready for retirement, or my philosophies, building into it. So start with a couple basics. I didn't have 401k as an option until I was 32 years old. All right, and so that's when I started. And originally I started with, just put a little bit of money in. I think it was about 2%. Then very quickly I realized, wait a minute, if I put in 6, they give me 3, and I'm making 50% of my money. So I immediately went to that, and I went with your standard 401k. All right, and then through the years I've increased that as I could afford to. All right, I increased it to help grow my nest egg, all right, or my retirement account, whatever you want to call it. All right, so I don't know how unusual that is to anybody, but I never had a pension or anything, but I started off with, at age 32 with the ability to do a 401k, and I've been doing it religiously ever since. All right, now another thing that from a planning standpoint, I don't even know if it was really a planning, just more of the way I wanted to live my life. A lot of people talk about you save, and then you retire and you go and do all these things. I didn't believe in that, because you never know. Tomorrow's never given, okay? You don't know what tomorrow holds. And so I wanted to save, but at the same time, I wanted to live. I wanted to make sure my kids had a good time. I wanted to take my kids, as many places as I possibly could. And I wanted to get out and see and live my life and not just try to save every penny that I possibly could. So we tried to do both. All right, save and live at the same time. And so you've seen some of that. If you've been watching any of my photography videos for the last 5 years, you've seen some of that. I mean, we've been traveling the world, doing river cruises, doing different things, all right, just because I didn't want to wait till I was retired to do that. I wanted to do it while I was healthy, while I could still do things. When my kids were younger, they played soccer. We traveled all over the country, and we went to Europe and we did different things with them. It wasn't all about just saving and planning for retirement. It was about living and planning or saving, all right, to get there. And we've managed to do a pretty good job, my wife and I think, over the years to, kind of balance that. It's been a challenge. I'm not going to kid anybody, but we've managed to get there. All right. And the whole idea was when we got to retirement, try to be as debt free as possible, save as much as we could, but still have lived along the way. All right. And so now here we are. I've walked away. All right. My wife's still working. She's probably going to work for another 2 or 3 years. All right. But along the way, we've lived and we've had a good time. And I don't look back and say, I wish I would have. If today's my last day, I'm not going to say, I wish I would have this or wish I would have that. Because for the most part, everything I wanted to do, I've done. Going into retirement, it'll be things, that either I didn't accomplish, like going to Australia, all right, or just other things that, hit me and I want to do, or my wife and I, we want to do more in a relaxed way because we've accomplished those things. All right. We managed to get here without really any major debts. That's a great thing. We don't have any credit card debt. We don't have, any car payments of any type. The only real mistake I would say that we probably made, along the way goes back to, housing. All right. We moved a lot and I never worked to pay off my house. I had that in process when I was living in Fishers, Indiana. If I were still living in that house today, I'd be paying it off this year, all right, and I would be 100% debt free. But instead, because of life circumstances and things like that, we decided to move to the other side of the city, build a house, and for lack of a better term, start over. Now, that put us in a position where I couldn't pay it off. And then, of course, 3 years ago, we moved here to Northern Kentucky, all right. And again, we wanted to downsize. When we moved here, we wanted to, kind of set ourselves up a little better and from a retirement standpoint. And I'm not saying we're going to stay here forever. All right. That's certainly on the table, is we may or we may not. But at the end of the day, we wanted to treat this like this was the last place we were going to live. So we bought a patio home and a subdivision that's mostly retirees, but it's not a retiree subdivision. All right. And they take care of your yard. They take care of your snow and they do everything else. So we don't have to worry about it. Now, the negative to that is this is in an extremely expensive neighborhood, and the house wasn't inexpensive. So we still have a mortgage debt. All right. It's not a gigantic mortgage debt. And I have plenty of money to pay it off today if I wanted to. All right. But my financial advisor says not to. And he says you're better off at this point leaving your money in your savings accounts and letting it draw interest or grow, because it'll exceed what you would, what you're paying per month, from a mortgage standpoint. So we're going to continue along with his advice and we're going to let that go. Now, if we decide to leave here, all right, and move somewhere else, whether that's Tennessee or that's Indiana or that's, God forbid, Florida, all right, we'll probably find something that we can pay off and that'll eliminate that last debt. But, we'll downsize a little bit more from where we are. But that's really, how we've set ourselves up. One mistake, the mortgage side of it, to me, I would like to have been debt free, but, we're not. And again, from a financial advisor standpoint, they say it's best not to, not to pay it off. Keep paying the mortgage, and because you're whether you like it or not, your property taxes are still going to be there, and and your home insurance is still going to be there. So you save some money, but you still got bills to pay anyway. So I'm going to follow that path, and I don't know how long we're going to live here in this particular neighborhood, but certainly as long as we're here, we're going to follow that plan, and then we're going to continue to learn and mature into retirement. As we go forward, the next big question, I guess, to be answered is when to take Social Security. Again, financial advisors always say don't. Hold off as long as you can, preferably 67 or 70. I don't think I'm going to go that long, but maybe 65, maybe. All right, and maybe even at 62. It's going to depend on what we learn here or what I learn here over the next several months of being retired. You know, if I enjoy it and I get into a routine and I find that I like this stuff, I very well might just say, you know what, this is it. I'm happy. I don't want to, worry about anything more, and that would be it. And if I find that, you know what, I still got some energy left that I want to devote to something else, I may go do that. The beauty is I'm in a position where I can do that, and I'm very happy to be here in this particular spot right now. So where are you guys at? What do you think? How did you plan moving into retirement? How do you see things moving forward? Did you take Social Security at 62? Did you wait till 65? Did you wait till 67 or 70? Curious what others, think or what they're doing. What was your big financial mistake? All right. Did you save everything and not live until you're retired? Or did you do like my wife and I've done? We've tried to balance it to where we've done both. Let me know. Leave some comments. All right. I love to read it, and I love to respond to it. All right. So I'm not going to ramble on anymore. So thanks for coming along, everybody. Greatly appreciate you. Stay safe.